Sheila. You talked me into it. So I'll talk for a while about my experience in World War II. It all started on December the 7th, 1941, when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and knocked out the biggest part of one of our Navy fleets. We declared war on Japan on the 8th of December. Then on the 12th, Germany and Italy, they declared war on us. I was working out at B.F. Goodrich in Akron, Ohio, when I got my draft call. I came home to Philippi, and then from Philippi we went to Clarksburg, where I taken my physical exam and was sworn in. That was on March 22nd of 1943. Then the next day they loaded us in on a train, and we went to Camp Polk, Louisiana, to form a new division. That was called the 8th Armored Division. So we was there at Camp Polk, Louisiana for about 15 months. We first taken our basic training, then we went on maneuvers, then we had special training in parts of Louisiana and Texas. Then they was getting ready to invade France, and so they shipped about a third of us guys out of the 8th Division and sent us overseas as replacements. They knew they need a lot of replacements for the GIs that got wounded and killed when they made the invasion. So guys from the Air Corps was transferred out of the Air Corps and sent to our division. And then we already had most of our training. They sent us overseas as replacements. We sailed for overseas on June the 3rd, 1944. We left Camp Miles Standish. Then we was on the water, D-Day. That is when the Allied forces invaded France, England and Canadian and U.S. troops. And we arrived in Scotland on June 11th. Then we were sent by train down next to the English Channel, about 60 miles from the English Channel, and they gave us infantry training for about 10 weeks. Well, I never had no infantry training before. I was in the artillery, and I drove a supply truck while I was in the States and trained on our artillery pieces. They was mounted on the M7 Courage. We had 105 artillery mounted on them. So we took our basic training, and then we shipped across the channel, and we landed on Omaha Beach in September. We pitched tents there, waiting for them to assign us to our different outfits. They finally assigned me to Company F of the 317th Infantry Regiment, 80th Infantry Division. I got with my division, and they assigned me as head scout. And finally we pushed off into our first attack since I got with them. And since I was head scout, I had to lead the battalion. They said the average life of a head scout in battle was 3 minutes. That didn't sound too good to me. But anyway, we attacked this town, and there weren't no resistance in that town, and we just had a few Germans that surrendered, and we didn't run into any danger at that time. Then we fought on, taking high ground, mostly some little towns. I remember one time we were supposed to take this hill. We got about a third of the way up it, and a German had machine guns on each flank of us and got us pinned down. We couldn't move, wounded some of our guys, and so we was pinned down there. The sergeant wanted me to go up on top of the ridge where the artillery observer was, observing down into town, see how many Germans was moving into town. I went up there, they was throwing artillery in and mortar shells, and I had to run zigzag all the way up there, trying to keep from getting hit, and I did. Got up there and got the information, brought it back down to the sergeant. Then the next day, we moved up and took the hill. I guess the artillery pieces had the Germans about wiped out. Then come October, and they had us to halt and dig in the 8th day of November before we shoved off. In the meantime, the big trucks hauled the 50 caliber machine guns in, crates upon crates of ammunition. About 3 o'clock on the morning of the 8th of November, the machine guns started to open up, spraying the other hill across from us where the Germans was. Those tracer bullets just looked like 4th of July. Then the tanks started to shell on that hillside and had white phosphorus shells. They lit up and they lit the whole sky up. Really a lot of light. And on December, we was pulled back to change clothes and take some training on how to penetrate that Siegfried line. That was a line the Germans built with concrete bunkers. We called them dragon teeth, big concrete teeth, to prevent the tanks and everything from penetrating on through. We was only there a couple of days when we got called out with all of our equipment and loaded on trucks. They drove us all night. We wound up in Luxembourg, up there in Luxembourg, Belgium. Here, the Germans made their big drive. That was to be called the Battle of the Bulge. And we were put on a line, told to dig in and hold our ground to the left man, not to take any prisoners. Well, we held the ground. The Germans didn't get to us. I guess the front line had to stop them. In a couple, 3 days, we took off on to attack. We was on this hill, and it was snowy, and about 5 inches of snow, and we dug in up there, and it was cold, and I was with my buddy in this foxhole, and we took turns about being on guard, staying awake, and long in the morning hours, it was a moonlight night, I think, and I saw 2 Germans sneaking up this little, looked like a cellar house down below us, about 100 yards. I got my rifle and aimed at them, and it was froze up. It wasn't far. I laid it aside, got my buddy's rifle. Yep, wasn't far either. So the Germans came up there. I guess they thought we was in this little building, and they put an explosive charge against it and blew the door in. Then I could see them run back down the hill. But there wasn't none of us in there, so they didn't do us any harm. Then we were moving on, and E Company was down below us. We were up above. And E Company thought we was Germans. Somehow they got mixed up, and they started to open fire on us and fired on us for about 10 minutes. Killed several guys and wounded a lot of them. I know them bullets was coming close to me and tearing up the snow right around me, and I'd run, jump in the snow, and run a few more feet and hit the snow. Then we moved on a little farther, and then we halted. And my captain, Captain Kelly, he came by and said that the German artillery shell came in and blew up the battalion radio and killed a radio sergeant, killed a battalion commander. And since he was the highest ranking officer in the battalion, he taken over as battalion commander. We wound up getting encircled. The Germans encircled us and got us cut off, and we were surrounded. We dug in on top of this little ridge. Snow was on the ground. We could look down below in the valley and see those Germans lining up for mess call to eat. They never knew we was up there. We never wanted them to know we was up there because we knew we were surrounded and outnumbered. So in the next day or two, Captain Kelly, which was my company commander, he led us out that night through the enemy lines in single file, and we moved slowly, you know, and it was awful cold. And when we stopped, we had to sort of mark time, run in place to keep our blood circulating, you know, keep my feet from freezing and so forth. But anyway, we got back with our outfit. That was the day after Christmas, and we had one hot dinner. That's the only hot dinner I remember having during the war. And there's a lot of it because a lot of guys got wounded and killed. So there's plenty to eat, but some of the guys didn't make it there to eat. We went through several towns. We moved on down south of Luxembourg. But before we did that, though, we fought through the Ardennes Forest. That was a large pine forest. It's awful dark in there, even in the daytime. Driving the Germans out of there, they had captured that on their big drive, so we pushed them out of there. A lot of them surrendered to us in that forest. Some of them, I think, just gave up and wanted to get it over with. We went through Nuremberg and Munich. Munich is where us guys found this motorcycle where the Germans had hid, and we rode around on that motorcycle for a day there till the next day. Then we went in Kassel. Well, we didn't have to fight for Kassel because the mayor there didn't want his town tore up, so they surrendered that town to us, and we didn't have to fight for it. We went to Nancy, Kaiser, Saluten, Worms, France, Hamburg, Zinbach, Pilsen, Czechoslovakia, Dessendorf, Ziesing, and that was in Austria. We were in Austria for a while. And on February the 18th, we were supposed to take this hill, and we had to go through an open field, and my platoon leader got killed going through that open field. I suppose they thought he was some officer or something. And anyway, he was a leader, and they shot him, and we got in through the field and into the wooded area, and they started throwing those mortar shells in, and artillery shells, wounded several guys. The medics was back in the barn or something back there 200 or 300 yards. I guess they was afraid to come up any closer. So me and three other guys made a stretcher and put one of the wounded guys on that stretcher and go to carry him back to the medics. Mortar shells started coming in. One piece of shrapnel hit me in the hip, went through the notebook I had in my pocket, and it just penetrated my hip and just bled a little bit. Sergeant put a bandage on it, and I kept on going. Then after that, we was told we was going to go up on this one particular hill with our bayonets fastened. And when we came off, well, next morning, we was going to come off fighting. So we sneaked up on that hill at night, and I guess we got up there about 3 o'clock in the morning, and all at once the guns started barking, and here those Germans, about 10 of them, was on the way up to man this here 88 artillery piece they had, and we was already there, and so our machine gun battery fired on them and killed 3 of them and captured, I think, 7 of them. Then the next morning, I could see I was dug in just about 50 yards from this big artillery piece. So they knew we was there then. They started throwing shells in, and I was down in my foxhole, and I always had those K rations. I got a paraffin wax on the box, and I'd take that box out, and then I would light it, and I put my hot chocolate or what I had in my canteen cup, and just enough heat while that box was burning to heat my coffee or my hot chocolate. Well, I was heating up some hot chocolate, I believe it was, and the old artillery shells came in and just filled my cup full of mud, so I didn't get to drink it. But when we came off of the hill, we didn't have to come off with a bayonet fastened, because I think the artillery guys did a pretty good job of destroying the German machine gun nests and everything, and we didn't have to fight our way off the hill like we thought we may have to. Then we came to the Aar River, and they had little rubber boats that hold about 5 guys, and the river was muddy. It was up a little, about 75 yards wide. So 5 of us got in this boat. There's a lot of boats crossing, but in the boat I was in, 5 of us got in it and paddled across the river. The Germans occupied territory on the other side of the river, and then I let them out, and I brought the boat back the other side and got 4 more fellas, and taking them across. So I had to cross the river twice. Then we came on down, fought our way down to the Rhine River, and we thought we was going to have to cross it in boats. They brought big aluminum boats up that evening, and we stayed in this town right this side of the Rhine River, and we were supposed to cross the next morning. And when morning came, the bridge was still there. I suppose they expected the Germans to blow the bridge up, but it was still there, so we didn't have to use the boats to cross the Rhine. We crossed on our jeeps and by foot, and took all our equipment across on the bridge. So we was lucky there. Then, after my platoon leader got killed, I got a Lieutenant Beckman. He was a Jewish lieutenant. He's a pretty good old fella, and I know once every month these officers got a ration of whiskey from the United States, and he'd call me to his foxhole wherever he was at and offer me anything I wanted to drink. This one day I was fixing me something to eat or to drink, and they wanted me to go with them on a patrol to see if the Germans was down in the other town. About 4 or 5 of them was going. And I said, well, I will, but I said, can you get somebody else? I'm just heating up my coffee. I believe it's coffee. They said, yeah. So they went on patrol with 4 or 5 of them, and when they finally got back, here they run into 3 or 4 Germans, and my lieutenant carries a pistol instead of a rifle. Well, this lieutenant, he shot one of those Germans in the shoulder, and he was sort of bragging about it, but he really, in a way, I think he's glad he didn't kill him. So the medics took the German back to the hospital, and he got along okay, but then my lieutenant bragged about shooting this German with his 44 pistol. I believe it's 44 caliber. And while he was gone, the Germans had a something like an artillery piece. It was called a Screaming Mimi. It would shoot about maybe 8 or 9 shells, something like a mortar shell, but they make a screaming noise as it's coming in. Mostly, I think, it's good just to scare and frighten the troops, although they would blow up and could kill you if they hit close to you. But I had dug my sort of a split trace back in the bank, and I was on the battalion radio at that particular time, and had earphones in my ear, and I heard this Screaming Mimi coming in, and I just took the earphones off and dove back into that little hole I had dug. It didn't hurt me, but them things does scare you. So after we crossed the Rhine River, the Germans was given up by the flocks, by the hundreds, and sometimes by the thousand. And we traveled pretty fast then. Sometimes we'd have to fight for a little town or for a little hill, but mostly we kept on moving. There wasn't too much resistance. And we get the evening time, the company commander wanted to know if we wanted to dig in for the night or take this other little village down here. We always tell him, well, let's take the village. That way we'd have a dry building to sleep in. The towns was all deserted. There weren't nobody living in them. So we'd usually take a little town so we'd have somewhere to sleep. We finally worked our way into Czechoslovakia and Austria, and it was in Czechoslovakia. We were in Czechoslovakia when the European War ended. That was that was on May the 7th of 1945. And they said, the article in the paper when I came back, well, I guess my mother had cut out, it said the 80th Infantry Division fired the last shot in the European War somewhere in Czechoslovakia. So the war ended on the 7th, and then that evening the chow trucks came up, and all the lights were on the trucks, and it was really beautiful to see the headlights are burning. During the war, you didn't have no lights on them, and no lights at all, and that was really pretty. I enjoyed that. Then after that, we assigned to certain areas as occupational troops. And I was sent up to this German resort up there where the Americans had, and they had the Rockettes at their show from New York up there entertaining the GIs, and so many soldiers would go up there for a 3-day pass and be entertained and stuff. But they sent me up there as a truck driver, and I was up there to study until my truck broke down. Then they sent me back to my outfit and sent another guy in his truck up there. Then we was in Oberammergau, Germany, for a while as occupational troops. That's where that Passion Theater is, and they have this play of Christ every 10 years. People from all over the world goes there to see that once every 10 years. They had it every 10 years except during the war. That's the only time they failed to have it. And I was up there in that building, saw that building. I was only staying about a quarter of a mile from it. Then I walked up on the Alps, up above the Oberammergau, and looked down on the town. It's pretty. Then I went deer hunting over there. The first time I ever did go deer hunting while we was serving as occupation troops. A couple of us guys got our carbines, and the company commander let us have a Jeep, and we drove up there. I got see a deer, and I got a shot at it, but I didn't get it. Then finally, in December, I was told I'd get to go home. I had 65 points. They let you go, everybody go home according to how many points they have. You get points for how many months you've been in service, and for combat, and for the Purple Heart, and so forth. So all in all, I had 65 points. So I got to leave for home in December. I took a supply truck with equipment and drove it clear through Germany on the Autobahn into France, where we got rid of that. Then we went on to the port of embarkation there in France and waited for our ship to come in that we was going to sail across on. So we started to sail for the States on the 18th of December. I was pretty well broke then. I didn't have any money, but some way the difference in the value of the money, the French government gave each soldier about $18 and something. That's all I had when I got on the boat. I started playing poker with the guy there and won probably a couple $100. Then I quit playing poker, started shooting dice, and I cleaned up the dice game. I won 2,000 a little better. I had my pocket stuffed full of money, so I kept that stuffed in my pocket. So as soon as I got in discharge in Maryland, I got money orders made out, and then when I got back to Philly, I put my money orders, cased them in, and put it in the bank. We arrived in the States on December 30th in New York Harbor, there by the Statue of Liberty, and then we went by train to Fort George Meade, Maryland, where we was discharged on January 4th at Fort Meade, Maryland. And I got home in Philly on January the 6th of 1946. Well, I finally did it, Sheila, so I'll be seeing you. Your dad.